Hi, my name is Gerald Dixon. I'm with OhioBlogspot.com. We're here today with Dave in Whitehall, Ohio, a person that's had much trouble with the local code enforcement office. Dave, how are you today?
Pretty good, Jerry.
Good. You're sitting by your nice homemade water scene here. It's very beautiful.
Well, thank you. That started when I first got the house, and this was my first house I ever bought, and I was 50 years old when I bought it, so I was a frustrated renter, and I wanted all those things I saw on HGTV, and just started getting into landscaping and digging and having a whole lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's amazing and quite unlike any of the other places here in Whitehall.
Yeah, well, it takes a whole lot of work, a whole lot of commitment, a whole lot of money to get this sort of thing established, and a lot of people really don't care to do that.
Yeah, well, you've done a beautiful job.
Well, thank you.
So, Dave, tell us what went on with yourself in the code enforcement offices here.
Well, it was probably 3 years into being in my house when I decided to put a lot of effort in the front yard, and in doing so I wanted some privacy with natural foliage, things of that nature, and I had to put up some boards on the existing split rail fence to train some vines on. Well, by doing this, I believe I was observed by a resident that lived on the street who was pretty much a friend to the public service director, and at that time he told the public service director what I was doing, and the public service director, Ray Ogden, came over and confronted me about the boards. I told him I was training vines, and he told me it was a code violation to have these boards. They need to be, a certain dimension and height and things of that nature, and he left, and I cut them down to the height they wanted. He came back, and he still told me I had to come down. I didn't have a permit to put up these boards, so I went and got a permit with the drawings. Short story long, it took me 3 attempts because I didn't have the boards spaced equally according to the code. And in the meantime, after 3 visits and a very curt demeanor by the public service director, I engaged in a lot of vocal expressions of anger towards him and his
gymnastics, if you will.
His approach as to a citizen, instead of being friendly in his advice, he was very demeaning and demanding. And that set the tone. We did not have a very good beginning or acquaintance. That was my first encounter, and at that time some statements were uttered by him responding to me which were unbecoming to a public official. That was the beginning of the meeting with Ray Ogden.
And so it was some time between that initial meeting and the next time you had encounters with the code enforcement office. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was a period of time went by where I still continued work on my landscaping and things of that nature, but circumstances led me to have to take an early retirement from the federal government, which I had worked with. And at that point, I decided to start a cottage industry after a couple of years of really trying to make ends meet with less money. And that would encompass something I was interested in, and that was rehabbing or repurposing furniture and things that I would find and try and basically rehabilitate them and sell them at flea markets, things of that nature, just to help support myself. And in the process, I had collected things and had them on my driveway or in my backyard or my porch, and I'm naive to any codes. I mean, the code system in any city is quite a large volume, and you cannot know as a homeowner what the heck is you can or cannot do,
or that they might necessarily even exist outside of your encounter with Ray Ogden.
Right. Well, I believe the same thing happened as the self-appointed vigilante gentleman that turned me in with the fence was also friends to my neighbor. And upon visiting my neighbor, he expressed his disdain for the stuff I had in my driveway. He thought it looked trashy, and
Didn't he call it junk?
He went back to his friends. Now, mind you, this is pretty much a little club that has quite an extensive background of friendship, and they help each other, run each other's campaigns. This person's ex-city council. They're all together. And he complained about my property, and I was visited by Ray Ogden again with the code enforcement officer, told what I had done had to come down, damn the structure I had protecting my goods, things of that nature. He just told me everything I had to be put away because it was, you know, basically against the code to have what I had on my driveway, on my porch.
So you're talking about Walt Sorrell?
No, I'm talking about Ray Ogden, and at that time there was a code enforcement officer named Jerry Rolfe.
Jerry Rolfe.
Okay. They both came, and they told me what I had to do. So after complaining again, you know, because of the manner in which I was addressed, I also voiced my opinion to Ray Ogden about what I thought of him and his beginnings to come up to my house and you know, take pictures of my property. And so I thought I complied. I did what I thought they wanted me to do, and 2 months later I received a summons support for charges of you know, waste, trash, debris, and things of this nature on my property, and went to court. Didn't go in my favor. However, I kept doing the things I kept doing because this is what I did to...
you weren't just simply making a mess or anything. No. You were doing this for a reason.
Right. This is all stuff I'm rehabbing, basically saving from the landfill. It was all stuff that was destined that people did not want, would put out.
Right.
Table, chairs, you name it. Nails, hammers, power tools. I collect stuff that's, you know, I could use without having to pay for it, which I'm not able to do. And so there's a lot of things that should be, you know, more people should be doing it, and I think there'd be less problems with landfills, regardless.
You're very eco-friendly and earth-friendly and green-friendly.
In a roundabout way. It wasn't intended. It just happened that way.
Okay.
So anyway, that was the catalyst for 4 more summonses on the same offense. There was nothing I would do short of not having anything out that would satisfy him. And it escalated. It amounted to 1 a year, and 6 months, 8 months out of that year would be taken up with this particular charge, whether I had it changed venues to Columbus from Whitehall, etc. After 2 appearances in the Whitehall system, I found it was pretty much, you know, you might as well just not go. You will not win against a city and their representation against a citizen. You don't win. It's simple as that.
And was this the time that you went in and asked Ray Ogden who the complainant was?
That was on the second charge.
Okay.
And
what happened then?
Well, he just said we don't have to give out that information. And
who complained about your the stuff in your driveway, etc.? He said he didn't have to divulge that.
Right. There's never been on all the documentation. There's never been a complainant, but I have learned since this thing has begun. And
yet, there's a paper when you go into mayor's court, correct?
Oh well, everybody who goes to court gets a paper of their rights.
And what does it say on that?
You have the right to know your accuser. That's a constitutional right. However, there's a lot of situations where your constitutional rights basically are insignificant, in a sense that they're not giving any weight or credibility if somebody wants to, as a public official, violate these civil rights to justify, you know, if there is any. I think it's personality and personal agendas can be, you know, put forth from public officials to citizens that don't seem to want to abide by their way of. You know, imposing their will upon you, and it happens, and it's written about not just here but all over. It's just some sort of power authority that gets abused by public officials because there's no accountability. Because in most cases, the city will have the last word when it comes to any sort of litigation that results in misdemeanors and things of this nature.
Right. I'm gonna stop it for the moment so that we can go into part 2.
Okay? That's fine.